Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Everybody heard that, right? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I heard it through somebody's microphone. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Glasser Institute for Choice Series, Difficult Discussions in Diversity. I'm Gloria Smith Cisse. I am the co-chair. Akmos Snip Ra is our other co-chair. And I always like to say in this conversation at the very beginning that I'm grateful for the fact that the Glasser Institute uh, decided to facilitate making sure that we had this conversation and that because I think it's very important, it's very necessary. I also am proud of them because in many places people don't want to have these conversations, and they are definitely um, important to have. And for me, while some of the conversations that we've had have required me to think about a lot of things, none of them have really been difficult, but that's my that's my take on it. And I am um asking you all to just be a little patient with me because I know everybody's perception is different. So and so if something happens to be feel like if you have an ouch, if there's something that feels a little uncomfortable for you, we ask that you do a couple of things. One, say the word ouch, right? And we will acknowledge the whatever it is. And but we also ask that you entertain the possibility that it's okay to be uncomfortable for a little while, because sometimes we don't get growth without a little bit of discomfort. This hour is recorded because it is a learning environment. We ask that everyone is um, continues to be respectful of each other, not use any form of violence. I always think when we're using choice theory, those of us who practice choice theory, then and we're recognizing that the only person's behavior I can control is my own, and we're using those skills that we learn um, through practicing choice theory, that we would kind of naturally refrain from being violent towards each other. But I know that's not always the case. And I know that everyone who joins us is not practicing. And as my good friend Neb would say, is that we're not all at the same place at the same time. And which reminds me of that African proverb that says, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with a group, right? You go with everybody else. And but anyway, that is that. So this is a learning environment. Hopefully it people will feel like it's a safe place to be. There are no wrong comments, there are no wrong questions. We are here just to have a conversation, and hopefully about things that we don't talk about on a regular basis, um, so that we can um, grow for ourselves and help the people around us grow. So another thing I like to do, and I'm always so grateful that y'all are patient with me, but the other thing I like to do is ask everybody how you're feeling. And I will do that. And then we will talk about the wonderful topic that we're going to talk about today. You know, the only part of it I can remember, I read your blog post, Judith, and all I can remember is the ing words. And being excited every time I think about adding ing. Okay. All right, that's me and my silliness. But okay, so we're gonna start because Doug was here first. I don't remember after Doug and Otmos who the other people, but I'll just call everybody's name. And if you don't mind, when I ask you how you're feeling, if you'll just try to choose an emotions word and let us know how you're feeling today. If you can't think of one, that's perfectly okay. All right, so Doug, how are you feeling today?
I guess adventurous because it's one of those days where you kind of have to take those little curves that life gives you. Nothing major, but just making enough to make an adventure.
Mm, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Making an adventure. Making it an adventure. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, thank you. Neb, how are you feeling?
The word for today is excited. I'm
Oh,
anticipating a great meeting and I am anticipating an even more wonderful day.
wonderful. So glad you're here. Cherie, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling excited as well. I'm actually here at my grandmother's house. I haven't seen her in a couple years, so
Oh,
I'm so happy and excited to be here spending time with her.
okay. Awesome. Well, welcome, Cherie. This is your first time with us, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, welcome. Rhonda, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling thoughtful because I got a lot going on in my head with my paper I got to redo.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully this will be like a little calming, and you
Yes.
can get you through with your paper. Glad you're here, Rhonda. Carol, how are you feeling today?
I'm happy to be here. I'm mostly peaceful. I'm a little apprehension because a lot of people around me have COVID, so I'm being
Mm,
cautious and
mm,
paying attention to my body.
yeah, yeah. Carol, I think for some reason we keep thinking that COVID is gone, and then we hear about people being sick, and
Yeah, just in my area, it's just gotten real contagious, a contagious variety or something.
oh wow, okay.
That's part of our adventure. Our daughter has gotten they said it wasn't COVID or flu, but it's presenting very much like that.
Mm,
Just the te high temperature for a
mm,
couple of days, and then and we were talking to another friend, and they had it.
wow. So we need to continue to be safe, as safe as we can. Okay. All right. I'm glad you're here, Carol. Rena, how are you feeling today?
Um, I would say optimistic. I'm found a new job, so I'm in the
Okay.
process of leaving a really, really toxic job.
Mm,
Um, and then I also applied last night to be an instructor for the summer literacy program. I can actually do both with this transition period, so I'm hopeful. But I'm also getting over a really bad migraine day, so I'm kind of just, taking it slow today.
well, I'm glad you were able to join us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be
Thank you.
here.
Judith, how are you feeling today?
Yay, I unmuted. um, I'm going to piggyback on what Doug was saying about an adventure. My doctor and I are going exploring.
Mm,
So I'm going to consider that exploration is an adventure.
mm,
And then I can apply that to Zoom. So I'm exploring, I'm adventuring. So would prefer to be at peace with Carol, but that's not where my life is right now. So,
mm,
but not because of COVID.
okay. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely glad you're here, Judith. Definitely glad you're here. Laverne, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling optimistic. Thank you all for asking.
Very welcome. Thank you for being here. Really excited about everybody being here. All right, so I don't know if all of you get. Oh, it's posted on the gift website though, isn't it? The blog post you write. So a few months ago, we sat down, and we'll probably do it again at the end of our conversation today. But we talked about some topics that we wanted to cover for, the first 6 or 7 months of the year. And so Judith has been gracious enough to write a blog post to go on the GIFT website to correspond with these conversations. Well, actually to preclude. They happen, she posted before we have the conversations. But anyway, so her topic, the topic that we chose and she wrote about this time was futuring and choice theory. Now, I don't want to speak before you, Judith, but I just have to say this. When I was reading and learning about choice theory, and I realized, the gerunds and the ing and all that, I became so excited about it. I just got really, really excited. And then when I explained to people why I get excited about it, when I think about, if I think about the language we've used in the past, like saying I'm depressed, right? It to me is like putting on a heavy winter coat in the middle of the summer and then wearing it all the time. But when I change the language from depressed to depressing, then it feels like there's something in motion. There's something that I have some control over that I can change versus like I'm just sitting here with this heavy thing on me. And that's how I try to explain it to people, but I don't know, if it always comes across the way I'm trying to explain it. But I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have today about futuring and choice theory. You ready?
Excuse me. So one of the things that I will say is when we brainstormed ideas, May was supposed to be about pets. However, I got hooked into this public broadcast system program called A Brief History of the Future, which I totally recommend to anybody. For me, it was hopeful, fascinating, eye-opening. I looked forward to 9 p.m. on Wednesday night, and I'm not somebody who looks forward to television programs other than maybe Jeopardy and Jeopardy Masters right now. So, but it just was so exciting. And then by total happenstance, I saw that Ari Wallach, who is the producer and host of this program, was going to be interviewed on Firing Line with Margaret Hoover. And so I watched that, and he talked about a brief history of the future, that people think of the future as out there. So they don't take into consideration the future when they make decisions today because it's out there. And so he said he started thinking of it as futuring. Futuring is more immediate. It's action. And I'm like, futuring? Oh, depressing, angering. I just sort of was maybe not leaping. I don't leap anymore, but inside I was leaping because I'm like, whoa, yes, this is even another way to have our language be more active, to have it be more what we are, what we're in control of. It just excited me. And so the reason I wrote that post is really because I'm wanting people to understand that what Bill was talking about, depressing and angry and the emotions kind of thing, it has a life beyond what he was talking about, but in the same way, because he was talking about if I say I'm choosing to depress or I am depressing, I now have agency over my actions. If I say I'm futuring, then that also gives me agency over my actions. I can look at what I am doing now in terms of the future. And as I say as I wrote in the blog post, today is the present. At 12:01, tomorrow is the future. At 12:01, today is the past, and I'm now in another present. So the future doesn't necessarily have to be way out there, something that we'll never get to. And so, and I also mentioned the concept of the 7 generations, the first Americans, excuse me, First Nations and the tribes that have that concept, and other people who live by that. So it was just exciting to me, because it's like, that's sort of like a Glasser concept in our little Glasser world. Whereas the way he was talking about it, it opens it up and brings a broader lens to, so more panoramic lens instead of our focus lens. I don't know if that's a very good analogy, but anyway, that's why I just got so excited about that. And so no pets, but we do have futuring. And I just think that when we see places, and that's the other reason I wrote about it, when we see places where Bill's ideas can be expanded, because if he was here, I don't think he would say, oh no, futuring, that doesn't fit with what I'm teaching. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think that's what he would say. But so when we can see other places or in other situations where his concepts are relevant, I think it behooves us to spotlight that, because it gives people an opportunity to see the wealth of the information, the strength of the information, of what we talk about, of what we teach. So that's sort of the story behind it. But yes, if you go to the GIFT website and click on blog, that's what's up there.
I think too that it definitely fits, because he was already talking about, without using the term futuring, he was already talking about adding some kind of motion.
Yes.
So I would like to hear from others. I will call names. I'm not beyond that. Yes, Carol, thank you for raising your hand.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I see it as being part of total behavior, though. It's in the aspect of choice theory that you do have thinking and feeling and doing involved in depressing, for instance. So if you're futuring, what are the emotions around that? You brought up thoughts, Judith, but we're also implying action towards wants and needs, another choice theory concept, and quality world, hopefully bringing in quality world as you move towards the future. Otherwise, Glasser would have been stuck in the present or the past if there were no quality world or total behavior driving your car of total behavior towards quality world. Yeah? And does that fit from what you understand of choice? So I think it's a great innovation, Judith. Thank you. I will look for the post. I haven't seen those be obvious on the GIFT site. Thanks.
I also think that by saying futuring, just like when I say I'm depressing, it's as what you're saying, Carol. I can take action to make it different. Whereas if I say depression or future, I have no control over it.
All right. Doug had his Oh, he unmuted his microphone.
Yeah.
Cherie.
Just wanted to comment that this is very much in line with another concept or a similar concept that I read about, and the idea that um, language and the words we use can and does influence our thoughts, and then of course our thoughts influences our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Doug. Cherie?
Yes, I had a question since this is a new concept for me. When it comes to the ing words such as depressing, if someone they felt like they were depressed and they said that they were having depressing thoughts, Judith said that we would be in control of those thoughts, right? So that we could change them and um, change the thought process, maybe from depressing to thinking about things that are not depressing to kind of get out of their own head.
We always have the option to change. I think what is so challenging is sometimes those thoughts pop right back up. We divert ourselves to something and almost immediately that depressing thought pops back up. And so it's not like, oh, I have a depressing thought, I'll think about beautiful flowers, and then the depressing thought is just banished forever. It takes work to come back to the beautiful flowers. And so I think that's one of the things some of the people that I've talked to that struggle with these concepts is, well, it takes so long. If I just take pills or drink or something, then it won't take so long, except as I say, well, but it just masks whatever the issue is. That you haven't fixed anything, you've just masked it. But yeah.
I want to add too, Cherie, that the total behavior is not just about our thinking. When we talk about total behavior, we're talking about the acting, thinking, feeling, and physiology.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not only changing your thoughts, you're not only changing which is probably one of the harder things you can do is change your thoughts. You're changing your behaviors, right? And so all of the behaviors, because all behaviors total is made up of those four parts. But the part that we see, which are like the symptoms, right? Or the external symptoms that people have, like lying around, not eating, not having a gosh, now I can't even think of all the symptoms that go along with maybe having the diagnoses of the depressive disorder or something. But if you do an opposite behavior, an opposite observable physical behavior, then it will impact the way that you think about a thing or where you are right now, which will impact your emotions and also your physiology, right? So we don't just think about the one part, we think about the whole part. And then based on the way that I was trained about total behavior, because the front two wheels are the acting and the thinking, if we change the acting, we have the potential, the capacity to change the thinking, the emotion that's associated with all of this stuff, and what we feel in our bodies, which is the physiology. All right.
So the challenge that people have is if you change one, so if talking about depressing thinking, if you change that, you're still in the recliner, you still feel bad, you still have the headache or whatever. If you start thinking of pretty flowers, that is a whole new behavior. If you get up to go smell the pretty flowers, that's just another total behavior. So everything, I'm sitting here as I'm talking, this is a behavior, total behavior. When I stop talking, that will be another total behavior. So, and as you know, we've taught, we have more control over the action and the thinking. But we all need to pay attention to what works best for us. For some people, getting up and being active helps them move from their depressing thinking because they're doing something and they're engaged. For other people, it may be rereading a book or being engrossed in an old movie or something like that. I mean, it's just so important to respect whatever the person says works for them instead of, oh, well, you just need to go get busy and then it'll be okay. Well, for some people, going and being busy is not going to be as helpful. So, but I know what's best for you.
Yeah.
Just do what I say and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, we know we're always trying to run away from that, trying to know what's best for somebody else.
That is true.
Right.
That is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So did anyone else have anything they wanted to say about that?
I can say something. I think that changing it from, depressed to depressing kind of takes it from the external control to the internal control, kind of changing that and seeing that, it is your behaviors, it is your actions. I talk to a lot of people about behavioral activation, like you were saying, thoughts, feelings, actions, all of those things. It just kind of gets a negative vicious cycle. But if you make one change to your behavior, force yourself to get up and do something, then it starts affecting, hopefully a more positive cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep trying to do those things. And just recognizing that depressed, typically you feel like I have nothing, I have no control. I'm just stuck. But you see, okay, I'm choosing things that are depressing me more, looking to see where you can do something, change your thought, change your feeling, change your action, whatever. That kind of makes it more like internal control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, true. I was wondering, and I guess we already addressed this because I wrote it down while I was listening to Judith, and it's how do you think these ideas will impact our overall mental health? And I think we already started addressing that because the other thing that came up for me is that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so how do these ideas, this idea of futuring, how do you suppose it might impact our mental health?
I think anything that, I'm going to start with the negative. In my experience, when people feel they have no control over something, whether it's something in their life, personally, at work, or in their community, or in the world, that is more challenging. And the less power, quote unquote, that they feel that they have in any situation, I think that impacts their mental health in a negative way. Mm-hmm. So by looking at futuring and figuring, oh, tomorrow's the future, I have control over at least my part of the future. I don't have control over the future of the world, but I have control over my future. And it's one of the things that I talk about in Staying Sane in a Crazy World. Every big issue out there, it has a small piece that you can claim and take action on. Mm-hmm. And so this would be one, futuring. If I'm worried about climate change, what is it that I can do in my personal life It's not going to change everything, but I'm not helpless. And then I'm not hopeless because I'm taking action.
Mhm.
But if I think a future is out there, something over which I have no control, then it changes the dynamic dramatically. At least that's how I look at it. And futuring and climate control is, or that's just one. I can look at crime. I can look at the situation in Gaza and Ukraine. I mean, there's a bazillion places around the world, even in my own community, over which I have no control. But what is it that I can control? And we say, oh, we can always control how we respond to it. And that's true. But sometimes, for some people, being able to take some type of action is important. Just changing, oh, yes, I can't do anything about it, okay. That's not, it doesn't help enough. So those are my thoughts.
So Judith, what might the action be? Because two things came
Okay.
here. One was, does adding the ing help people from your perspective? I think this is what I hear you say. It gives people a sense of control, more control over themselves. And okay, so the other thing is what might an action be that a person would take that would that would cause a shift for them?
Well, I'll just use myself as an example. I've been concerned about, because I'm not a heat person. So the change in the climate with temperatures getting hotter and hotter has been a concern of mine for several decades. So I have been, my yard is now mostly native plants. I compost. I used to compost, but then I got rats, so I stopped composting. But we have in Portland, Oregon, we can put all food scraps in our yard debris bins. So I do that. I have Ridwell, so I can recycle plastics. We have recycling, so I can do all this recycling. When I'm out to do errands, I make a path so that I'm not going out and back, out and back, out and back. I mean, these are things that I'm doing in my personal life to lessen my impact on the environment, to lessen my carbon footprint. I can't do anything about anybody else's. I mean, that's one of the things we know. The only person's behavior we can control is our own. So what is it that I can personally do? And that's what I do. I mean, there's some things going on in the world that, I don't know what I can do other than vote. I mean, but our election in Oregon, I've already voted in May 21st, so Tuesday, but then in November. But in the meantime, if I had a magic wand, there'd be no wars anywhere. And I'm not just talking about Israel, Gaza, and Ukraine, because I know there's all kinds of wars and civil unrest in that, in many other places. Sudan comes to mind. There'd be none. The gangs and all of that would not be controlling things in Central America and South. People would not want to come to the United States because they would be safe and happy in their own country. However, my magic wand, which is around here somewhere, is not working anymore. So I stay focused on that over which I do have control, that which I can make a plan and follow through on.
Awesome. Anybody else? Anybody else thinking about that? Carol.
Yeah, I think I like the way you started out talking, Judith, about this idea because you put it in the present. So to me, from the mental health point of view, you're not just having the future be out there somewhere, but you're putting it now. What is my thoughts, feeling, and action and physiology right now, but also informed by the past, because my concern would be that while we forget the past and just start running the same wheel over again and not getting results. So I think bringing the mindfulness into the present about what's going on, what is realistic for the future, what information do I have now for the future, but also thinking of that quality world or whatever the future to give a sense of hope. So to me, mental health relies on an element of hope, at least being present. So building awareness with the voting, we've got lots of challenges to diversity right now. So how can we take action? What kind of world do we want? And what are we practically moving towards to give a sense of hope? So yeah.
That's part of the process of reality therapy. You know, it's
say more about
we
that.
make a plan for what is it that we want. We end up with a plan for ourselves. One of the big no-nos is our plan cannot depend on everybody else. You know, but it's what I can do. This is important to me. This is what I can do about it.
So it's an
and I think people get lost in people that I am aware that I talk to. One of the things that happens is they get lost in the magnitude of the issue. And they don't look at what, and so then they're overwhelmed with climate and all of this stuff. Well, true, but what can you do? Breaking it down to there are things we can do. There are things that we can do in terms of violence in the world around us. For one thing, we have to be peaceful. I mean, you know, I did a workshop for several years at the conferences, Choice Theory and Peace in Our World, and it's very simple. If tonight at midnight, everybody chose peace, that's all it would take. There'd be no war.
There would be no war. It's true. That's true. So Judith, this is something else. It's kind of going through my head right now. And that's even though we work hard not to control other people, I still believe there is the possibility for influence, right?
Yeah.
And so we can want peace for ourselves. We can want, we can want to slow down climate change. But if we don't somehow say those things to other people and maybe kind of help them to see, well, I don't want it to sound coercive, but I do think if we can provide people with enough information, well, people who want to hear us, the ones that we do have some influence over, then they can see it and they can maybe, jump on the bandwagon. All these things are happening in my head because I'm also thinking about that idea, the concept of fusion of horizons, and how, the way that we grow is simply by being in the presence of somebody else who's talking about something different than what we've ever heard, or who's doing something different than what we've ever heard. And that's our influencing people and not trying to tell them what to do. So anyway, those are just things that, kind of going through my head as I'm listening and participating in this conversation. I think of all the things that I have learned and heard about choice theory and reality therapy over the years, the thing that has made me probably the most excited has been, the sense of agency, that I have some control over my mental health. I have some control over da 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 da. But also understanding that I don't have to be coercive and I don't have to be, I don't, trying, I don't have to, if all I can give anybody is information, and what they do with the information is up to them, right? And so I just say the things, I say a lot of stuff. Sometimes people hear me, sometimes they don't, but I say it because I never actually, none of us do know what another person might need to hear. And I don't, but I know, and I think the older I get, and I really hope I get to live as long as you are, Judith, get to be your age. I really do want to live to be an old woman. And not there, I don't think there's anything negative about that. Please don't hear anything negative, but I just see it. But because you're older than me. I know because you told me how old you are. And and so if I could just be there, I think I will be a very happy woman. And then live in a world where there's more peace. But I'm getting to a place where I feel that it is really important to speak my truth, not in a way that is harmful to other people, but it's almost as if, I don't get information for the sake of having information. I don't think that's how God created our brains, so that we would just get it in there and hold it. I think that information has a purpose, which is to be shared, right? And especially if it can help someone else. So I say things like, what, we really should. I don't have paper towels in my house. I don't have toilet paper. I have things that are disposable, not to go down my drain. I have, what do you call it? I have those hand towels. I have kitchen towels. I have all this stuff. And, people who come and visit me are like, oh my God, what do you do here? I'm like, I don't have paper towels. I don't, right? Because I think they aren't good for the environment. So, and I say those things to people, but I don't go in anybody else's house and try to tell them how to live. I just do what I think I need to do for myself.
And that's key though, Gloria. That is key. That is extremely important. It's what I can do. And I respect that other people have a different way of doing things.
But I still say it. Sometimes, because if somebody asks me about it, I still say, I talked to the plumber. I went to our water treatment facility when they had Earth Day, and they told me that these things are not flushable. They do not break down. They do not. I say all that stuff, but you still have the choice to do. I'm just giving you information, just like the person in the water treatment facility who was at that table that day he said, they advertise that da 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 happens, but it really doesn't. So I just share that information with other people, but it's still up to you what you do. I made a decision to do my part, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, how did I get down that rabbit hole? Okay, but it's okay, and y'all are patient. I appreciate that. So, but you do see what I'm saying about influence and the potential for influence. Okay. Okay. All right. Got it. Neb is being awfully quiet. He knows when he's awfully quiet, I'm gonna call his name. So, and he's always so forgiving of me for calling his name. But I'm still gonna do it. Always. So, Neb, do you have anything you want to add to our conversation?
Hopefully, yes.
Doesn't well.
I'm not sure it adds to the conversation, but I've been listening, and thinking always precedes action. If we look at the very ancient virtues, I also have thoughts concerning. We were talking about depression at one point. The physical aspects and the physical responses may be futuring, but what about the spiritual, which is eternal? I tend to think of time as timeless from a spiritual perspective. And so if we are both physical and spiritual, and it is our spiritual self, we are humans, not just with the spirit, but we are spirits practicing to be human, as a different way of thinking about it. If we also accept that there are differing, differing ways to look at time. For some, time is timeless. For others, time is present. And all else is, I was going to say collusion, but illusion. So can we control either what has happened or what will happen? There are some who have controlled what has happened through misinformation. There are people who have no knowledge of what has happened from the perspective of what is truth. There are people who have no knowledge, or they don't have any knowledge of what will happen from misinformation. Again, like the toilet paper and whatever would you say, paper towels? And we're being told that they can be taken care of. So the future is misinformation. We have no understanding of what will happen if we go to something as simple as recycling. We have less information from some people about how to save the planet. Misinformation again. So therefore, if we look at that future that controls our present, because all we can do is live in the present. So we are presenting. Is that good, Judith? Presenting.
All right, I like that.
So we are presenting based on the information that we either get from someone who may or may not be giving us, and I don't want to say truth, because I mean the question of truth becomes relative. Anyway, these are just some thoughts. If in fact we are dependent on misinformation, then what are we futuring about? If we are in fact getting correct information, that's a different perspective. And I think it is a conversation well worth having, because our level of comfort is based on many times TikTok. Oh, I just thought I'd throw that out.
TikTok. All right. Thank you, Neb. I knew we had something to add. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Always so valuable. I like presenting, not presenting, but presenting.
Yes.
Yeah. We could, let's see, now I was headed down another rabbit hole, staying out of it. Laverne, did you have something you wanted to add? You or Doug, were you about to reach for your unmute button?
Yeah, I was thinking, as being a new counselor, and being very new in the field and thinking of diversity, thinking of what do I, or what can I contribute? So being new, meaning that involves a lot of strategizing and exploring, just to see how we can affect the future in a positive way, not coming in trying to be a carbon copy or maybe changing the foundation, but finding ways, okay, why am I in this field? What style or what population that I am to reach that is going to make a difference in a positive way. So that is where I'm at. What is it that I'm to bring? Because I feel like we all have a purpose and we might not do it the same way, but it should be effective and bring about a positive change in a different way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Futuring or presenting? All right, anybody want to, thank you, Laverne. Anybody want to comment or respond to Laverne? What can we do?
I got a comment. This makes me reflect back on, I just did a diversity statement. And in my diversity statement, I put in, what can I bring to change? How can I influence these? How can my change influence others to change? And and what are the steps I can do to do this change and everything?
And did you have any solutions, any ideas?
What I have come up with is get out and do what I can for the environment, like not use plastic off and not make sure everything can be recyclable, not to send try to eliminate stuff going to the landfill because that affects the environment, and cut down on waste and all that. With my water, just I used when I wash dishes, I let water keep running to rinse the dishes. Well, now I rinse, turn off, and that way it won't use up so much water and all. Because use up water, a lot of water, then the environment is not going to have water. Trying to conserve on energy, like turn my lights off. If I'm not in a room, turn that light off. Be more mindful of things.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you. Anyone else?
I just wanted to add that a lot of people call me a vampire because I always have my lights off everywhere. And we have gas here too, but my electric bill will be like $20 one month. And they're, when I was coming out of the bathroom one day at work and I turned the light off, and this little manager girl was like, "Did you just turn the light off?" And I'm like thinking, okay, you're watching me or something. I was like, yeah. Wow, I've never known anybody who turns lights off in like public and office. And I'm like, I mean, it's all electricity. It's somebody's money or whatever. I'm just used to it and everything. But now every single time I come out of that office, or that bathroom, I'm kind of like, wanting to see if she's there or something. But habit.
Yeah. Well, you probably influenced her to do something different. Maybe. Who knows, right? Who knows? But the thing I think, and I want to speak directly to Laverne's comments, and that's, what can we do to influence the way that, or to influence the way that mental health is done in our current society. And I think one of the big things we have to do is really help people to get to a place where they understand the difference between mental health and mental illness, one. And which is a big task in and of itself. Also to advocate for somebody, maybe insurance companies, to pay for preventative mental health care for people, because folks don't need to wait until they have a crisis, a mental health crisis, before they can seek mental health care. more of us should be working towards learning how to use an internal control psychology that we can share with the people that we work with versus continuing with the status quo, which is to use an external control psychology. We don't have to. We can choose to use a psychology or a fusion of psychologies that includes things like African-centered and native cultures and native psychologies, because other cultures do have psychologies, not just Euro-Americans. And we can, so there's a lot that we can do, right? There's a lot. Advocating for everybody to have equitable access to mental health care, advocating for everyone to have equitable health care, period, and have access to good food, because we know that food impacts our mental health, right? And that, gosh, there's so many things. I'm even thinking about parity, so that mental health professionals are paid the same as doctors, because and so that there can be more people in the field, and advocating. I could probably go on with this forever because I've been thinking about it for a long time. But anyway, there are things that we can do, and one of them is I really believe that, if we can do away with this whole idea of helplessness, and I look for my book because I like Selinger's book on helplessness. Stop trying that our culture seems to want people to feel helpless, and as opposed to helping people to know that there's something that they can control. It's easy to market to people who feel helpless. But anyway.
But that's external control, Gloria, as you know. The more you can frame things so people feel hopeless or helpless or fearful, then the more you have the ability to control the information that they have. And as Neb was saying, then you can put disinformation in, because if the disinformation supports their fear kind of thing. So that's another whole go round. I think if we wanted to continue this, that in June, maybe we would talk about how do we find common ground with people that are different from us. Because when you find that common ground, you have a platform, a foundation to move forward. If you can't find common ground, you're just two ships kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that might be a really good topic, given that June is also Juneteenth. We have celebrate Juneteenth in June, and so talking about finding common ground would probably be right on point.
Okay.
Maybe we could encourage Neb to spend a little time revisiting critical race theory and how it got to a place where it's so controversial in our society. We know it was a legal position or a legal whatever. I have capacity to recall those things, but I think that anyway. So if that's okay, that can be the topic. So what do you all think about having a topic about around in June on finding common ground with other people
using choice theory?
I like that idea. Because we were talking about influence, and I think one of the best ways to have influence is you have to start from that common ground, because as you mentioned, if you just the two passing ships, you're just you're you'll come at each other from, you see your differences first and say, okay, we can't work this out. But if you start and say, okay, we know we have these things in common, and we make that a foundation, I think we have something to build on. Otherwise, there's nothing to build from.
Got it.
So I will use the Finding Common Ground with Choice Theory and Reality Therapy or something like that as the title for the June blog post.
And Neb, you didn't let us know. Will you in some way revisit critical race theory for us? Are you going to be in the country in June?
You of course, whatever you desire is my wish.
Whoa, Gloria.
Oh, girl. I'm feeling some stickiness here.
Yes, we're finding common ground and infusing. Well, once we have the blog, yes, no problem.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you. So Carol included something in the chat to add to addressing Laverne's question, a suggestion to consider majority world research in psychology. Oh my gosh. So are you talking about contributing to the research or being familiar with the research? What are you talking about?
Paying attention that it's research that's overlooked currently. It's because you're saying to make it more widely aware and known. Because when you're talking about internal and external control too, I think of the educational field. So there's a lot of resources with educational knowledge too to contribute to counseling. That adds, because Glasser was working with education too. So I like to include those when I'm looking, but just being more aware that research from around the world from majority peoples has been left out and is being more common now.
It has been left out. It's almost as if it didn't exist, right? I was, and I don't know if you've ever read, has read Bessel van der Kolk's book on The Body Keeps the Score. And in that book, he has a line, he's quoting somebody else, and he talks about when people's memories are challenged or kind of erased, it's the equivalent of soul murder. It's the term he used, soul murder. So when you exclude people's histories and contributions from almost everything, it's like stripping people of what we value. And like anyway, so he's talking about trauma and how trauma impacts us. That's what the book is about, is trauma. But there are lots of things I remember from his book, but that's one of them, right? One of the things that really stands out for me is, this whole idea. When you're talking about what's been left out, and I know we've already used up our time, and I'm always like mindful of the fact that but when we're talking about the things that are left out, like the African-centered psychologies or anybody else's way of dealing with mental health, it's just been left out. Like it didn't exist. Like people weren't doing, sorry. So anyway, y'all, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful conversation today. Judith, Neb, all of you, thank you so much for being here and giving this hour on your Saturday afternoon to us. We really appreciate it. I feel that this is what do they call this? A value add. I think it's a value add to the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. And but y'all have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you all in June.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Gloria. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Judith is about trying to ask me something.
If you would go to the GIFT website and click on the blog, preferably read it and leave a comment, but at least click on it. Maybe share it with other people. That would be really helpful.
Okay, we'll do
Spread
that.
the
Others are doing it too.
What
All right.
website is this again?
The Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. I think it's GIFT, G-I-F-T.
It's wglasser.com.
wglasser.com. Thank you, Adam. I just typed in GI. You know.
Well, you can get there that way also, but wglasser.com.
Yep, wglasser.com.
Yeah.
And you can also register to get the notifications about this meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
you can do that too.
Yeah, you can do that too. All right, y'all. Have a good one.
You too, Gloria. Bye,
Thank you.
Doug. Bye, Cherie. Bye, Neb.
Bye, y'all.